Should I go Corrupting Fever Glad? Or maybe it's time to try out EA Ballistas finally. No, too meta. Lightning Strike? Yeah, right, dude. Wait, what about Val Cleave? I don't know about you, but I'm having a really hard time choosing what build to league start this time around. Of course, this is nothing new. At this point, it's practically tradition to flip-flop between 7 builds before the new league actually starts, right? I mean, I can't be the only one that watches a build video from a popular YouTuber and immediately decides, yup, that's what I'm gonna play. I download the POB, bookmark the video, and maybe even play around in Standard to get a bit of a feel for it, only to then watch another video the next day that looks even more fun. At this point, if your subscriptions look anything like mine, you're probably flooded with videos of the absolute best league starters for 3.20 that you should definitely play. So let's take a second to just dissect what makes a good league starter for you. First off, let me say that what qualifies as a good league starter is incredibly subjective. We've each had our own experiences with different builds that we will naturally compare other builds to. Chad over here has been playing PoE for 12 years now and won't settle for anything less than an uber boss killer on day 1 of the league. Lil Timmy, on the other hand, just started playing the game last league and is really hoping he can make it to maps this time around. A good build for Charlie would probably not be a great build for Timothy right now, and the opposite is obviously true. A quick side note, if you're playing in hardcore or ruthless or solo self-found, then it goes without saying that you'll absolutely need to factor that into your choice of league starter. Right. So, I like to separate builds into 3 main categories and like 1 or 2 other niche ones. First up, you have your fast mappers. These are builds designed with running through maps fast and efficiently, aka your zoomers. Think auto bombers, cast on crit builds, lightning arrow, and so on. The goal for these guys is to blast through as many screens of monsters per second as possible while still doing enough damage to kill map bosses without too much trouble. Secondly, we've got bossers. Bossers are builds meant for killing endgame bosses with ease. Oftentimes these are either totems, traps or mines, or minion builds since they have a big uptime advantage on their DPS compared to other types of builds, allowing them to just run around dodging everything coming at them, assuming they can see anything. While these builds can still complete maps, they would rather be spending their time in actual endgame boss fights once they have all the items they need to take them on. The last big category is all-rounders. These are builds that don't specialize in either fast mapping or easy bossing, but are competent enough in both. They're in the middle and are generally safe builds to play if your goal is to just get through to tier 16 maps and do some endgame bossing. Think Spark and Toxic Rain builds, for example. Keep in mind that builds in this category could usually be pushed in either direction if you really wanted to with enough investment. So those are the 3 main types of builds that I think of. However, these categories only really encompass good or meta builds. What about your funky Glacial Hammer builds or Firestorm League starters? Well, these types of builds I would put under the for fun category. Just as important as any of the other types of builds, for fun builds are oftentimes memey and not necessarily good builds. Don't get me wrong, they could be. You could come up with a totally bonkers cleave build that maps like crazy and I wouldn't be all that surprised, but generally when playing one of these builds, the expectation is that you'll eventually hit a wall in progression where you either need to farm up a bunch of currency for better gear to push past it, or just decide to play something else. If you're okay with that and just want to explore new builds that look fun to you, then this is the way to go. Finally, the last category that comes to my mind, I've simply dubbed Other. These are good builds that are hyper-focused on accomplishing a specific thing that isn't mapping or bossing. Think of an Aura bot for group play, a dedicated lab runner, a door opener, or a heist farmer. Okay, so let's say you've decided which of these categories you want to choose from as a league starter. Where should you look for a build? Well, here's what I do. I look everywhere. YouTube, Path of Exile's official forums, the Path of Exile builds subreddit, and PoE Ninja are all helpful places to find build ideas. Just find something that looks fun to you by clicking through gameplay videos and double check that people say good things about them in the comments and that the items are realistic for you to achieve. If your league starter says you need a Void Forge, well, I've got news for you, buddy. If you're watching this video, you're probably not getting a Void Forge early on and you're better off moving on to a different build. If comments aren't looking too hot, then you should probably keep looking. If a video is titled patch 3.20 ready, but the video released a year ago, that's a red flag if I ever seen one. Also, double check that the path of building numbers aren't being hyper inflated by having everything ticked off in the config page. I know, it's a lot, but you should do your homework or risk getting screwed over. Lastly, to help you choose the right build, be realistic with yourself. Are you the type of player that plays a lot in the first weekend and is able to amass a ton of wealth for a second build early on? Or are you more of a player that likes to take their time to reach endgame? Maybe it takes you a week or 2 to get to red maps, or more. You'll want to pick a build that reflects that if you can. If you're someone that pushes hard, then you'll want something that's more solo self-found friendly since you'll have less access to good items. Whereas if you're more casual with it, then you can afford to play something that relies on certain items since people will have them up for trade by the time you need them. With all of this said, I hope that this helps you think about what kind of build is right for your league start. Thanks for watching, leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing for more PoE videos. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer here, and if you're not having fun, you can always just re-roll Seismic Trap for the 5th time.